The artificial gravity on Station Meridian hummed with a constant, almost imperceptible vibration that Nessa had learned to tune out over the past 2 months. What she couldn't ignore was the gnawing hunger in her stomach and the way her daughter's hand felt lighter each day as malnutrition took its toll. "Mama, my feet hurt," Jenna whispered, her voice barely audible above the cacophony of the trading district. The child's bright green eyes, so startlingly human compared to Nessa's amber ones, peered up from beneath a warm hood. "I know, little star." "Just a bit further," Nessa murmured, pulling her daughter closer. Her pale silver skin caught the harsh artificial lighting, making her feel exposed despite the layers of salvaged clothing she wore. Station Meridian was a crossroads of a dozen species. Yet somehow she always felt like the most visible person in any crowd. The market district sprawled across 3 levels of the station's commercial sector, a maze of stalls and storefronts where legitimate businesses rubbed shoulders with less savory operations. Nessa had spent weeks learning its rhythms, searching for anyone willing to hire a refugee with no papers and a child in tow. She approached a shipping company's booth, its sign flickering in Standard and 3 other languages. The Krillian behind the counter took one look at her and turned away, all 4 of his stalked eyes swiveling deliberately to focus elsewhere. "Please," Nessa began, her voice steady despite the desperation clawing at her throat. "I'm a hard worker. I can lift, sort, do inventory. No positions available." The Krillian rumbled without turning around, but it was the same response she'd received everywhere. Too alien, too desperate, too encumbered by a child. The frontier stations were supposed to be places of opportunity, but Nessa had learned that opportunity was selective. Jenna tugged on her sleeve, pointing to a food vendor where the scent of roasted grain filled the air. "Mama, can we—" "Not today, sweetheart." Nessa's throat tightened. Their last meal had been 16 hours ago, a protein bar split between them. She had exactly 12 credits left, enough for 1 more night in the communal shelter, or food. Not both. "Hey, Velithian!" A harsh voice cut through the market noise. Nessa turned to see Grick, a Thorian merchant whose stall sold imported goods of questionable origin. His scaled hide glistened under the lights, and his mouth split in what might have been a smile. "You still looking for work?" Hope and suspicion warred in Nessa's chest. "Yes, what kind of work?" "Simple courier job. Take a package to Dock 47. Deliver it to a ship called the Vagrant Star. 20 credits. 20 credits would mean food and shelter. But nothing about Grick's demeanor suggested honesty. Nessa's fingers tightened around Jenna's hand. "What's in the package? Does it matter?" Grick's smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Unless you're too proud for honest work?" There was nothing honest about this offer, and they both knew it. Nessa opened her mouth to refuse, to walk away despite the hunger and exhaustion. When a new voice interrupted, "She's not interested." A human man stood a few paces away, his hands tucked casually in the pockets of a worn leather jacket. He was perhaps in his mid-30s, with dark brown hair that curled slightly at his collar, and eyes the color of Earth's oceans, a blue so vivid it seemed almost unnatural against the station's sterile backdrop. Unlike most humans Nessa had encountered on the station, he didn't avert his gaze or hurry past. Instead, he looked directly at her with an expression that seemed more curious than hostile. Grick's scales bristled. "This doesn't concern you, Webb." "Anything involving employment fraud on my station concerns me," Webb replied mildly, though his posture suggested he was anything but relaxed. "Station regulations require all courier jobs to be registered with the dockmaster." "Unsure yours is properly documented?" The Thorian's expression darkened, but he said nothing. After a tense moment, he turned away, muttering something in his native tongue that needed no translation. Webb turned his attention to Nessa, and she instinctively pulled Jenna behind her. She'd learned that kindness from strangers often came with a price. "You're new to the station," he observed. Not a question, but not quite a statement either. 2 months, Nessa admitted, then cursed herself for volunteering information. "And you're looking for legitimate work." Again. That observation had invited confirmation without demanding it. Nessa lifted her chin. "I am. But as you can see, there isn't much available for someone like me." "Someone like you," Webb repeated, his expression thoughtful. "You mean a Velithian, or someone with a child?" "Both." The word came out more bitter than she intended. Webb glanced down at Jenna, who peeked out from behind her mother's legs. His expression softened slightly. "How old?" 6, Nessa said, her protective instinct flaring. "And before you say anything, she's quiet, she's well-behaved, and she won't interfere with any work I do." "I wasn't going to say anything like that." Webb's tone held a hint of reproach. "I was going to say that 6 is too young to be this hungry." The observation, delivered without pity, but with simple acknowledgement, made Nessa's eyes sting. She blinked rapidly, refusing to show weakness. "We're managing. I'm sure you are." Webb pulled a data tablet from his jacket, tapping at it briefly before showing her the screen. "I run a freight coordination company. We manage shipments between this station and 3 others in the sector. It's not glamorous work inventory management, manifest verification, some basic repair work on cargo containers. But it's legal, it pays fairly, and it comes with station-certified housing." Nessa stared at the tablet, her mind racing through all the ways this could be a trap. "Why would you offer this to me?" "You don't know me. I have no references, no work history you can verify." "No, I don't know you," Webb agreed. "But I know Grick, and I know what kind of courier work he offers. Usually involves smuggled goods and expendable people who won't be missed if something goes wrong." He paused, his blue eyes steady on hers. "I also know what it's like to need a chance that nobody wants to give you." "You're human," Nessa said flatly. "Humans own half this station. You've never needed." "My mother was from Earth's lower districts," Webb interrupted quietly. "She died in a factory accident when I was 8, because the owners cut safety protocols to save money. I know what it's like to be invisible to people who should care. So yes, I'm offering you a job. You can take it or leave it, but the offer's genuine." Nessa studied his face, searching for deception and finding only a tired honesty that matched her own exhaustion. Every instinct warned her that accepting help made her vulnerable, gave someone power over her. But Jenna's hand in hers was so small, so fragile, and they couldn't survive much longer on pride alone. "What's the catch?" she asked. "No catch. Standard employment contract, reviewed by the station's labor board. You work, I pay. Simple as that." Webb tilted his head slightly. "Though, I should mention housing is in the residential sector, which requires security clearance. If there's a reason you can't pass a basic background check, now would be the time to tell me." This was it. The moment where she had to decide how much truth to risk. "My name is Nessa," she said slowly. "I came to this station with my daughter because we had nowhere else to go. I'm not wanted for any crimes, but there are people looking for us. People who would prefer we disappeared quietly." Webb's expression didn't change. "Are these people likely to cause trouble on the station?" "I don't know," Nessa admitted. "I've tried very hard to leave no trail." "And your daughter's father? Is he part of this situation?" Nessa's free hand moved unconsciously to the pendant beneath her shirt, the only thing of value she'd managed to keep. "He was human. He died before Jenna was born. His people blamed me, said I'd corrupted him. My people," her voice caught. "My people don't believe children like Jenna should exist." Understanding flickered across Webb's face, followed by something harder. Anger, perhaps, on behalf of a child he'd just met. "I see. Well, Nessa, My name is Marcus Webb, and I believe every child should exist exactly as they are. If you're willing to work hard and show up on time, I'm willing to give you that chance. Everything else we'll figure out as we go." He extended his hand, a human gesture Nessa had learned during her time with Jenna's father. She hesitated only a moment before shaking it, his grip warm and solid. "When do I start?" she asked. "How about we get your daughter something to eat first, and then we'll talk details?" Marcus gestured toward the food vendor Jenna had been eyeing earlier. "Consider it an advance on your first paycheck." As they walked toward the vendor, Jenna's hand tight in hers, and Marcus Webb striding alongside them as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Nessa felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. It was fragile and frightening, but it was there, warming her chest like a small star refusing to dim. She didn't know if she could trust this human's kindness. But looking down at her daughter's face, hope beginning to replace the hollow exhaustion in those green eyes, Nessa decided that maybe, just this once, she could risk believing in second chances. The residential quarters Marcus provided were modest but clean, a far cry from the communal shelter where Nessa and Jenna had been sleeping on thin mats, surrounded by dozens of other desperate souls. 2 rooms connected by a small living space, with a kitchenette that actually functioned, and a refresher unit that provided hot water. Jenna had cried when she felt the warm spray, and Nessa had turned away so her daughter wouldn't see her own tears. That had been 3 weeks ago. Now, as dawn cycle lighting gradually brightened across Station Meridian, Nessa stood in Marcus's freight office reviewing manifests with the efficiency that seemed to surprise even herself. The work came naturally: organization, pattern recognition, problem solving. Skills she'd once used in a very different context, in a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. "You've got the Andromeda shipment listed twice," she said, highlighting the duplicate entry on her tablet. "Once under general freight and once under priority cargo." Marcus looked up from his own screen, squinting at her display. "Good catch." That would have been a billing nightmare. He rubbed his eyes tiredly. "I swear, half the ships that dock here have captains who can't tell a manifest from a lunch menu." "You've been here since before night cycle," Nessa observed. It wasn't the first time. Marcus had a habit of working long after everyone else had left, and she'd noticed the tight lines of stress around his eyes growing more pronounced each day. "Lot to do," he said with a shrug that was meant to be casual, but came off as exhausted. Before Nessa could respond, the office door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. A man strode in carrying 2 containers of what smelled like fresh coffee, a luxury on the station, and wearing a grin that seemed to light up the entire room. He was shorter than Marcus, with warm brown skin, dark curly hair pulled back in a tail, and an energy that felt almost tactile. "Tomas," Marcus said, surprise and pleasure coloring his voice. "I thought you weren't back until next week." "Managed to expedite the negotiations on Proxima 7, Tomas Rivera replied, setting 1 coffee container on Marcus's desk before turning to Nessa with open curiosity. "And you must be the miracle worker I've been hearing about." Tomas Rivera, Marcus's business partner, and the considerably more charming half of this operation. Nessa accepted his handshake, startled by his warmth. "Nessa, and I'm hardly a miracle worker, just organized. On this station, organized is miraculous," Tomas said with a laugh. He pulled up a chair, spinning it backward and straddling it with casual familiarity. "Marcus tells me you've already caught 3 billing errors, reorganized the entire inventory system, and somehow convinced the Krillian dock supervisor to actually file his paperwork on time. That's practically sainthood. I simply pointed out that proper filing would reduce his processing delays by 40%, Nessa said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. She wasn't accustomed to praise. "See? Miracle worker." Tomas winked at her before turning to Marcus. So, are you going to tell her, or should I? Marcus shot him a warning look. Tell me what? Nessa asked, immediately wary. It's nothing bad, Marcus said quickly, shooting Tomas an exasperated glance. I've been working on expanding our contracts to include medical supply runs. Pays better, and it's more stable work than general freight. But it requires additional security clearances, Tomas added, his expression growing more serious. Which means everyone on staff needs to go through enhanced background checks. He looked at Nessa apologetically. I know Marcus said you had concerns about visibility. The warmth that had been building in Nessa's chest turned to ice. How enhanced? Standard station security protocol, Marcus said carefully. Name verification, biometric scan, basic records check across the major hub networks. He paused. If there are specific concerns, we might be able to work around them. Tomas has contacts in the administration office. Contacts who owe me several favors, Tomas confirmed. We could potentially limit the search parameters, focus only on criminal databases rather than broader identity networks. Nessa stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Both men looked at her with concern, and she forced herself to take a slow breath. Running wouldn't solve anything. She'd known this moment would come eventually. My full name is Nessa Velthara, she said quietly. I'm not a criminal, but I am. Politically complicated. On my homeworld, Velithia, names carry genealogical data. Anyone who searches mine will know exactly who I am and who I'm related to. Related to how? Marcus asked gently. My family serves in the Velithian parliament. High-ranking positions. It wasn't quite a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. When I became involved with Jenna's father, a human, they considered it a betrayal of our genetic heritage. Velithians believe in preserving bloodline purity. A mixed child. She swallowed hard. They wanted me to terminate the pregnancy. I refused. I ran. The silence that followed felt heavy. Tomas exchanged a glance with Marcus, something unspoken passing between them. How high-ranking? Tomas asked finally, his usual levity absent. Nessa met his eyes. High enough that if they find me, they'll have legal channels to demand my return. High enough that fighting them could cost you your business licenses. Damn, Tomas breathed. You really don't do anything halfway, do you? I'm sorry, Nessa said, already calculating how long it would take to pack their meager belongings. I should have been more forthcoming. I'll leave tonight. You've been kind, and I won't repay that by bringing trouble to your door. Sit down, Marcus said firmly. Marcus, Nessa, sit down. There was steel in his voice now. The same quality she'd heard when he'd confronted Grick in the marketplace. We're not kicking you out because your family are prejudiced as holes. Slowly, she sank back into her chair. Jenna was at the station's learning center, probably laughing with the other children during recreation time. The thought of pulling her away from the first stable environment she'd known made Nessa's chest ache. Tomas leaned forward, his expression serious. Okay, let's think this through logically. You said they have legal channels. What kind of legal standing are we talking about? Extradition treaties, family law, diplomatic pressure? All of the above, potentially, Nessa admitted. Velithia has reciprocal agreements with most major systems. If they declare me a parental abductor or mentally unfit, many stations would comply with a return order. But you're the mother, Marcus protested. And from what I've seen, you're perfectly fit. On Velithia, mothers have custodial rights only if the child meets genetic acceptability standards. Jenna doesn't. The words tasted bitter. In their eyes, I kidnapped an aberration that should have been eliminated. Christ, Tomas muttered. He stood, pacing the small office. Okay. What if we don't do the medical supply contracts? We stay small, under the radar. That's not sustainable, Marcus said quietly. We're barely breaking even as it is. Without expansion, we'll be bankrupt in 6 months. Nessa watched the defeat settle over his features and felt guilt twist in her stomach. There might be another option, she said hesitantly. Both men looked at her. If I could change my identity, officially new name, new records, they'd have a harder time tracing me. I know it's not exactly legal, but on a frontier station like this, I know someone, Tomas said suddenly. Not someone who creates false documents, someone who helps refugees establish new legal identities through proper channels. Takes time, but it's legitimate. How much time? Nessa asked. Few months, probably. Maybe longer. Tomas pulled out his communication device. But in the meantime, I can put some, let's call them creative obstacles in place. Make sure any inquiries get tangled in bureaucratic red tape. Marcus stood, moving around the desk to stand beside Nessa's chair. We'll figure this out. You're not alone in this anymore. The kindness in his voice nearly undid her. Why? She whispered. Why risk so much for us? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his blue eyes distant. When my mother died, I spent 3 years in state care on Earth. Bounced between facilities, never staying anywhere long enough to matter. I promised myself that if I ever had the means, I'd help people who needed a soft place to land. He smiled slightly. Besides, you're the best employee I've ever had. Purely selfish motivations. Despite everything, Nessa felt a laugh bubble up. Purely selfish. Of course. Absolutely mercenary. Tomas agreed cheerfully, his grin returning. Now, let's talk strategy. First thing we need to know if anyone's actively searching for you. I've got a contact in station security who owes me for helping relocate his sister last year. He can monitor incoming queries without leaving traces. Second, Marcus added, we establish a contingency plan. If someone does show up asking questions, you and Jenna need a safe place to go while we sort things out. The maintenance tunnels, Tomas suggested. Level 12, near the old water recycling plant. Nobody goes down there anymore since they installed the new system. We could set up a temporary shelter, stock it with supplies. They continued planning, their voices overlapping with ideas and refinements. And Nessa felt something shift inside her chest. She'd been alone for so long, making every decision in isolation, carrying every burden by herself. The sensation of having allies, people who chose to stand beside her, was both foreign and overwhelming. Mama! The office door burst open, and Jenna rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. Behind her, looking apologetic, stood the attendant from the learning center. I'm so sorry, the young Andronian said, her translucent features shifting with embarrassment. She saw you through the window and just ran. It's fine, Nessa assured her, gathering Jenna into her arms. Thank you for bringing her. After the attendant left, Jenna wiggled in her mother's embrace to beam at Marcus and Tomas. We made pictures today. I drew our home. Did you? Marcus crouched down to her level. I'd love to see it. Jenna produced a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket, smoothing it out proudly. The drawing showed 3 figures, one with silver skin and yellow eyes, one small with brown skin and green eyes, and one tall with brown hair. They stood in front of a building with Web Freight scrawled across the top in uncertain letters. That's you, Jenna pointed at Marcus. You're part of our home now. Nessa saw Marcus's throat work as he swallowed hard. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than usual. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever drawn for me, Jenna. Thank you. You should put it on your desk, Jenna said matter-of-factly. So you don't forget we're a family now. Over her daughter's head, Nessa met Marcus's eyes. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement, a promise, a beginning of something that neither of them had words for yet. "I won't forget," Marcus said softly. And Nessa knew he wasn't just talking to Jenna. That evening, after Jenna had fallen asleep, clutching a new stuffed toy Tomas had mysteriously produced, Nessa stood at the viewport in their quarters. Station Meridian stretched out before her, a city of steel and light suspended in the vast darkness of space. Ships came and went, carrying people to 1,000 different destinations, 1,000 different lives. She'd spent months running, always looking over her shoulder, never allowing herself to imagine a future beyond the next day. But standing here, in quarters provided by a human who asked nothing in return except honest work, with friends who'd spent their evening planning how to protect her, Nessa allowed herself to wonder if perhaps running could finally stop. Her reflection in the viewport showed a woman who looked less hunted than she had in months. Still cautious, still carrying wounds that might never fully heal, but no longer entirely alone. The door chimed softly, and she turned to find Marcus in the hallway, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Thought you might still be awake," he said, offering her one. Tomas had some success with his contact. "They're setting up monitoring protocols tonight." "Thank you," Nessa said, accepting the tea. Their fingers brushed, and neither of them pulled away immediately. "For everything. I know I keep saying it, but you don't have to keep thanking me," Marcus interrupted gently. "You and Jenna, you're not charity cases or obligations. You're—" He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "You're important. To the business, yes, but also—" He met her eyes. "Also just important." Nessa's breath caught. The viewport behind them reflected their images back 2 figures standing close together, the space station's lights creating a halo effect around their silhouettes. It would be so easy to close the distance between them, to seek comfort in touch and warmth. But fear held her back, the same fear that had kept her isolated for so long. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Trust, connection. I've spent so long protecting Jenna, protecting myself. I don't know how to let someone in." "Then don't," Marcus said simply. "Not yet. Not until you're ready. I'm not going anywhere. Nessa, neither is Tomas. We're here, and we're staying, whether you're ready to trust that or not." The simplicity of his promise, given without demands or expectations, made tears prick at Nessa's eyes. She blinked them back, but one escaped anyway, trailing down her silver cheek. Marcus reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away and gently brush the tear away with his thumb. "Whatever comes, we face it together. You're not alone anymore." And standing there in the dim light of their quarters, with the vast universe stretching out beyond the viewport and the warmth of another person's kindness surrounding her like a shield, Nessa finally allowed herself to believe him.